This is Malibu, the cool, laid-back surfer at home on the beach. You're looking at Lace, feminine, sexy, but always a lady. This is Gemini, a split personality, calm 1 minute, violent the next. This is Zap, strong, silent, the Terminator. You're looking at Nitro, cocky, explosive, and always aggressive. And this is Sunny, the all-American woman. These are the American Gladiators. And the events they compete in are confrontational, exciting and fast-paced, action-oriented, visually interesting, and capable of producing emotional moments. From Universal Studios Hollywood, this is the American Gladiators. And now the larger-than-life American Gladiators march into the competition area. There's a lot of athletic ability in this group, including 2 former NFL players. They're tough, determined, and ready for competition. Now let's meet the contenders who will compete against the Gladiators on this program. Selected from a national search, they are Frankie Perry from Canoga Park, California, experienced in skydiving. Brenda Hund from Roswell, Georgia, a first-degree black belt in karate. Craig Williams from Lynn, Massachusetts, a credit analyst for a bank. And John Shumski from Medford, Massachusetts, a hockey enthusiast. Hi, I'm Joe Theismann, the host of the American Gladiators. Ladies and gentlemen, you're going to see some competition like you've never seen before. Let me explain the format. There are 2 male contenders and 2 female contenders who will be competing against our Gladiators. Based upon how well those contenders do, they'll be awarded points. At the end of the show, the contender with the most points, both male and female, will advance to the next round. They'll also move 1 step closer to that $10,000 first prize and the possibility of becoming an American Gladiator. Now, for an explanation of our first event, let's go over to my co-host, Mike Adamley.
Joe, the first event is called the Joust, but that almost sounds too gentle when you consider what's about to take place. Our contenders will be armed with these pugil sticks, much like the kind used in military training. They will then try to knock their opposition off this narrow walkway or push them back through a trap door. However, there is one rather large catch, and I do mean large. He's our gladiator, Gemini. And as you might expect, he is hardly a pushover.
People think I have a lot of moods. Well, there's only one mood that I'm concerned about. That's competitive mood. And if you people out there think you're a competitor, remember, you'll have to compete against me, Gemini, an American Gladiator.
He's got me convinced. Gemini, 2 personalities, but only 1 mission, destruction.
Our first contender is going to be Craig Williams, and he was a fullback at Lafayette College, started there for 3 years, as well as joining the New England Patriots as a free agent. So he's had a little bit of competition when it comes to hitting people.
And Joe, Craig, one of the few contenders that can match Gemini in terms of size and power. Craig goes 6'2", weighs 225 pounds. And that stint he did with the Patriots in the NFL could serve him well in the Joust. Again, the rules, knock your opponent off the platform or push him back to a point on the platform where a trap door will give way. Gemini looks like he's ready. We should also mention a contender can earn points even if he is knocked off the platform. Based on the number of seconds he stays on top. Power versus power. Gemini and Craig Williams.
There, Craig Williams is off, but Gemini used his hand Now that is against the rules. Neither the contender nor the gladiator are allowed to use their hands. Watch that left arm and left hand. Yes, Gemini gets it out on top of Craig Williams and pushes him off the stand. Now this could be a possible disqualification. We're gonna have to go to the judge for a ruling. If it's thumbs up, it's okay. If it's thumbs down, it's thumbs down. It's a disqualification. Gemini is disqualified. Let's go over to Mike Adamley.
Gemini, I know losing is a word that is foreign to your vocabulary, but you took that decision like a man.
Well, we have judges. If he felt it was a fair decision, it was a fair decision. But Mike, I'm mad now, and I'm ready to go. There will be no more disqualification. There will be elimination.
Pretty strong words, Craig. Come here a second. That was sort of like the irresistible force versus the immovable object, and it looked as though your football background with the New England Patriots helped you out a bit.
Yeah, that's true. You know, we were up there struggling pretty hard, but the low man wins. And just had to take Gemini out of the stars, you know, bring him back down to earth.
I think they good line. I think they registered. When you both collided the first time, I think it registered about 5.3 on the Richter scale, 230 pounds against 230 pounds, or whatever Gemini weighs.
Whatever it takes.
Okay, good luck in the future, babe. Nice going.
Our next contender is John Shumski, and we asked John who the most influential person was in his early life.
It was Dad that really helped me along and took me to these crazy rinks at, you know, early in the morning, late at night, snowstorms and cold weather, and bring me down the pond after a full day of school and skate until it's dark. All the other kids are home. I'm down the pond with Dad skating laps and laps and laps around the pond. So it's Dad. It's Dad.
John Shumski, reflecting on his young days as a hockey player. He actually went on to star for RPI and the University of Lowell, 2 collegiate hockey powers. He was actually drafted by the St. Louis Blues. So he, too, is a low. He goes about 6'4", 215, so he can match Gemini in terms of power and strength as well, just like Craig Williams.
I would think also, Mike, that being up on that platform, having to skate a little bit, what little I have, is you have to use your balance even more than just in the game of football, as Craig Williams did. So this might be a little bit more of an advantage for Shumski.
Well, Craig Williams earned 100 points for knocking Gemini off or having Gemini disqualified. John Shumski will have to do the same. And quickly, Gemini gets rid of John Shumski. My question to you, Joe, was it legal? It appeared as if Gemini's hand left the pugil stick once again.
Well, that time I think it does. Initially, it starts, and then he seems to correct himself, manages to get his shoulder into Shumski, but I don't know whether the judge saw the handoff. All the judge does see is after they move away from one another, that Gemini does have both hands on that stick. So obviously his rule stands. Craig Williams receives 100 points. John Shumski just gets 30. And coming up next, women's assault. Coming up, the first event for women. Let's go over to Mike Adamley for an explanation.
Well, Joe, this game of assault really is different from all the other events here on American Gladiators. And I'm going to tell you why. I'm down here in the trenches, in this case a makeshift pillbox, which is armed with one of 4 weapons that contenders will have to eliminate the Gladiators. In this case, a rocket launcher. My mission, the contenders' mission, hit that target and make the Gladiator disappear. John Rambo, eat your heart out. Well, in this case, the game would have been over because I just hit the target. But if the contender misses, he's got another chance with this cannon. All right, baby, I missed there. It's a game of quickness, agility. You got a minute to finish off the Gladiator. That one missed, and now I've got one last chance. Duck, duck, duck. From here, I've got a hand grenade at very close range, but he's right on top of me. I'm a sitting duck.
Nice form, Mike. Now we get a chance for the contenders to take a shot at the assault. Our first one is Frankie Perry, and she's a model and a modeling instructor. I just wonder how that type of job is going to help you in the assault.
How about, Joe, not at all. You got to look there for a moment at Zach. She's the Gladiator atop that platform. She'll be firing a cannon that fires tennis balls at over 100 miles an hour, something I didn't have to deal with in my little demonstration. Zap thinks of herself as the Terminator. She'd like to terminate Frankie Perry's effort here.
Little wide right with her first shot. Now she gets to expose herself in the open area, and this is where Zap can just fire repeatedly at her. She manages to get to the safety of the wall.
No room for hesitation. And indeed there wasn't. Frankie Perry was hit on her right hand. Watch again as she was trying to fire that cannonball, and there is the nick. Next up, Brenda Hund from Roswell, Georgia, 19 years old, and earlier we had a chance to talk to Brenda and talk about her experience in karate.
I was very shy and very intimidated all the time. In the last 4 years, I've come out of that shell so much.
Because of karate?
Yes, definitely so.
Brenda Hund have pretty much a free run on this one, with Frankie Perry being eliminated because of the shot by Zap. She just really has to be careful to try and move along from station to station without getting hit to just finish the assault. Huh, Mike?
Well, Brenda Hund, to earn points here, she'll earn 100 points if she hits the bullseye on the target. She hits 60 points if she hits the white part of the target, and she earns 30 points if it's a draw. In other words, merely surviving while not being hit during the 60-second time limit.
You know what impressed me so much about her is her quickness. She'll stop and dart out here. She's trying to time the load by Zap. She'll try and get her to shoot once, and then out she goes.
It's got to be petrifying out there for Brenda. You get hit with one of those tennis balls, it really stings.
She tried to fire the gun through the twigs and just was unable to get it anywhere near the target.
Again, Brenda has 60 seconds to hit that target next to the Gladiator. Pretty weak effort there. Had that hand grenade been loaded with something other than glitter, Brenda would have blown herself up.
She really would have. But the important thing is the whistle is blown. She's managed to get all the way through the assault. Although she didn't hit the target, she will receive 30 points. She takes a 30-point lead on Frankie Perry. Now let's go over to Mike Adamle for an explanation of our next event.
The name of the game is Powerball, and as the name implies, strength will play a very important part in this event, so will quickness. Two contenders will compete side by side against each other, head-to-head competition inside this large semicircle. Their mission to score as many goals as they can inside a 45-second time period. A goal when the ball is placed inside this cylinder. However, the contenders face a very big problem. Actually, three very big problems. Our three gladiators who will be doing their darndest to stop the contenders from scoring.
Our next contender is Craig Williams, and earlier we asked John Shumski who was the most influential person in his life. He said it was his father. We asked Craig Williams the same question.
Yeah, I would say my father, because, I mean, since day one, you know, my mother says that when my brothers and I were born, you know, he had the ball and bat in our hand. You know, and he's always taught us about sports, and just do your best, and that's all you can ask. That's all anyone can ever ask of you. Just do your best, and if it's meant to be, it'll be. He always told us the cream rises to the top. I've never forgot that. Never.
Nice story. For Craig Williams, words to live by. And for John Shumski, Powerball represents a chance to get back in the hunt. He trails Craig Williams by 70 points going into this second event.
You got 5 big men out there, Mike. I mean, you got the 3 gladiators, all of them in excess of 200 pounds, and our 2 contenders well over 200 pounds, so ought to be a little meat slapping around out there.
Fairly small semicircle, and our gladiators weigh a combined well in excess of over 700 pounds, so they mean business as well. And I think they developed a little strategy here to help thwart both Craig Williams and John Shumski.
I think what they want to do is they want to put Gemini in the middle and Malibu and Nitro to take care of the wings so that the big guy can help out if in the event somebody happens to get tied up with one of the contenders.
15 points for every goal scored. Shumski just misses there as Nitro takes him down. Oh, what a collision between Craig Williams and Nitro. Nitro is still down, and he's out on his feet. I think he's temporarily unconscious there. Finally gets up. Shumski taking advantage by scoring 1, 2, 3, 4 quick goals.
Now you see Gemini trying to help out Nitro, knowing that he's a little bit dazed. It really throws the whole teamwork out of order. Nitro running over and back. Craig Williams looking at the void, running over. Here's where it starts to get a little bit tough because you run for 45 seconds, but those last 10 seconds, you feel like you're carrying a giant refrigerator on your back. Your legs just won't move.
Nitro grabbing John Shumski, but I'm not sure if he knows where he's at yet, Joe. Terrific effort by all 5 men. Shumski, 6 balls, 90 points. Craig Williams, 3 balls and 45 points.
Now let's take a look at this collision. Nitro is going to move up on Craig Williams. He realizes he's trying to stop him from getting to that goal. Now Williams just lowers his shoulder. Nitro knows it's coming, but he can't do anything about it. Holy mackerel. Now Craig Williams loses the ball in that instance, but Nitro
loses his senses.
Lost about where he is. Now John Shumski, look at Shumski. He goes back and forth, checking Nitro on the ground. Take one more peek. Oh, he's still there. Let me head on back. Do another one. All right. He looks to be up. Now he heads over towards Malibu. Puts a couple of good moves. 4 quick goals while Nitro is out on his feet. And there's the score. Craig Williams, John Shumski closing that gap to only 25-point deficit after 2 events. Coming up next, women's human cannonball. Well, we're back to Universal Studios Hollywood. Let's go over to Mike.
This next event is elementary in design, and the rules are quite simple. It's called the human cannonball. Now, I'm standing on a platform that's about 20 feet above the ground, and what the contender will try to do is they'll grab this rope and they'll swing from it, and what they'll try to do is knock a gladiator off a pedestal about 30 feet away while swinging from this rope. They'll get 3 chances to do that. Now, it kind of sort of sounds like one of those Tarzan movies where, you know, Johnny Weissmuller grabbed the vine. The only problem is waiting at the other end is not Jane, but something much more formidable.
Well, at the end of 2 attempts in the human cannonball, we see that Frankie Perry is leading, and we asked her what it was like growing up with 3 brothers.
We had to stick together, always together, all 4 of us. And you put 4 kids together 24 hours a day, you tend to have a lot of fighting. And that's how I grew up being physical. All 3 of my brothers, it was always 2 against the 1 or 3 against the 1. And, you know, you have somebody sitting on you and pulling your hair and running around the living room with a dagger, a knife. All my brothers have very bad tempers, so it was kind of a joke. Self-defense means I'm always prepared. Yeah, but now we're close, so it's okay.
And I'm sure Frankie's 3 brothers are very proud of her, although they might question their sister's sensibilities standing atop a 17-foot platform. Again, the contenders given 3 swings to try to knock the Gladiators off the pedestal. This is Frankie Perry's 3rd attempt. So far, she's 1 for 2, and she'll be going against Lace. Frankie Perry with momentum on her side, and she is able to knock Lace off the pedestal. This is, as I said before, an event where the contender has a distinct advantage because of the momentum they carry coming off that platform.
Well, not only that, but you saw Frankie Perry hit her the first time and then stayed long enough to be able to push her off with the foot again to make sure she went off the pedestal.
And Lace is going to remember that as Brenda Hund gets set to go. She is 0 for 2. This is her 3rd and final attempt. Brenda, 19 years old, at a bit of a disadvantage here because of her weight, just 110 pounds. Lace sets in. Brenda takes her best shot, but it's not good enough. So Brenda Hund goes 0 for 3, and she trails Frankie Perry by 30 points after 2 events. Now here's Joe with an explanation of our next event.
This next event is called Breakthrough and Conquer, something very near and dear to me. It's a throwback to the old days of one-on-one football we used to play in our backyard, and some of us used to play it for a living. 15 yards away from this goal line will be the contender. In a 5-yard area in front of the goal line will be a gladiator. The gladiator cannot leave this black area to go and attack the contender. The object of the game is quite simple. The contender has to score a touchdown. The gladiator has 3 ways to stop that contender. Can run him out of bounds, can stop his forward motion, or put him on the ground. Now, once that contender has scored a touchdown, he has to quickly get up and move to the conquer part of this particular event. That is this 12-foot circle located in the back of the end zone. He's just not going to stand in there. Waiting for him is another gladiator. Now, the contender will have 10 seconds to try and move that gladiator out of the circle. Consequently, you've got the breakthrough, and then you've got to go back and try the conquer.
And if you're successful in both breakthrough and conquer, that's worth a total of 60 points and a bonus of 40. So there's the potential to earn 100 points in this event.
This is one of those competitions where I think you just have to set the man up, make one move, because you've only got to go 10 yards, and do the best you can. Take advantage of your size to try and get the ball into the end zone. Of course, when you talk about size, Gemini is no small person.
And Gemini well acquainted with football-type events from his days in the NFL, and Malibu is one tough dude inside of a wrestling ring.
One tough dude. He'd love to hear you describe him that way, you know. He had that long, blonde, flowy hair.
Shumski just using all the power he has and a little bit of enthusiasm. Man's delighted to be in the end zone. Now he locks up against Malibu. He says, here, come on, get me right in the head. Come on, I'm ready for you.
The contender has 10 seconds to knock any portion of the gladiator's body outside the ring, and it looks like John Shumski has done just that as the judge has made his ruling. Shumski, 30 points in the breakthrough, 30 points in the conquer, and a bonus of 40 points for a total of 100 points. Nothing fancy here. John Shumski with a little shake and bake, and the rest is all power as he is able to drag Gemini across the goal line. And perhaps Gemini's only mistake was where he lined up. Had he gotten closer to John Shumski, he might have been able to better thwart Shumski's momentum. Now here's Joe with the winner.
A little bit different than being on a pair of skates and some ice, isn't it?
Yeah, a little bit. Just try to build up as much steam as you can and try to get through these big guys.
Is that the way you did it on a hockey rink?
I tried.
And it worked?
Sometimes, yeah.
All right, after you got through there, now you come into this little circle. More like a rink, I guess, than anything else.
Yeah.
What would you try and do, your strategy to try and move that gladiator out of the circle?
Try to get his hands out of the way and go for the body and push the body. He's coming at you with his hands. And try to move the hands and get right to the body and try to force him out of this little area here.
Brute force against brute force?
Yeah, you could say that.
Whatever works.
And Craig Williams certainly hoping that brute force will work for him. And Gemini has to be wondering right now about taking this guy on after watching what happened to Nitro and Powerball when he collided with Craig Williams.
Well, he's got to figure that probably Craig Williams is going to try and put a move on him. I would think he's going to hope that Craig Williams is going to try and put a move on him. That could be the only advantage I think Gemini is going to have, because when that contender gets that 15 yards of momentum built up, there really isn't a whole lot you can do but maybe steer him out of bounds.
And getting by Gemini just half of the equation, Craig Williams will also have to toss Malibu outside of that makeshift wrestling ring to earn the 100 points that John Shumski won in this event.
Oh, my goodness.
No finesse there, Joe.
Oh, shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. All he saw was the green right of the end zone.
And I'm not too sure that Malibu wants any part of Craig Williams. So 30 points in breakthrough, 30 points in conquer, a bonus of 40 points, 100 points for Craig Williams.
Well, what we're going to see in this competition is Gemini has moved up closer to the 5-yard line, but as Craig Williams approaches him, Gemini starts to back up and give a little bit of ground, wound up at the same spot he did trying to take on John Shumski.
And remember, our Gladiator is a big, big man. Calling Dr. Gemini. I don't think anybody's home after that collision.
You were a fullback in college.
That's right.
I mean, when you lined up 15 yards away from the end zone, a little deja vu for you?
Exactly. I just tried to conjure up those basic football principles. Stay low, deliver the blow, and see what happens.
Once a fullback, always a fullback. Make contact and move people. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So after 3 events, both Craig Williams and John Shumski racking up a lot of points, with Craig Williams holding a 25-point lead. Coming up, the women's joust.
The women's swing shot competition, which was held, Frankie Perry got 90 points, Brenda Hund 80. Now we look at the totals. Frankie Perry leading Brenda Hund by 35 points after 3 events, which brings us to the women's joust.
And first up will be Frankie Perry. She'll be going against the Gladiator. Her name is Zap. Frankie Perry will try to knock the Gladiator off that very narrow platform.
I still have to believe, Mike, that it's one thing to concentrate on the Gladiator or the Contender in front of you. It's another to feel like that 2-foot 6-inch platform is wide enough to be able to do anything on.
And another thing to remember, Joe, is I'm sure that none of our female contenders have ever had a pugil stick in their hands, and I'm not so sure that they know exactly what to do with it. Again, it's a matter of instinct. Zap quickly goes to work with a right cross, and she has knocked Frankie Perry to the canvas.
Well, Frankie Perry tries the move ahead, but Zap manages to duck and then just brings the stick to her back, gives her one shot, and then off Frankie goes. Zap comes down after. Well, it looked to me like Zap took advantage of the fact that Frankie Perry tried to lunge at her, but that's Zap. She's one tough customer.
I'm tough, I'm bad, and they call me the Terminator.
Well, next up to face Zap is Brenda Hund, who, despite her lack of size, has no fear when facing bigger opponents.
Oh, I'm always very apprehensive. I'm a very nervous person. And I never underestimate everybody, but at the same time, I have confidence in myself. And I know from the past, I've fought lots of big girls, so I'm not used to fighting smaller women ever, so I'm really fired up about it, and I'm not afraid.
Well, Joe, she certainly doesn't look afraid. She looks mean. She's got her karate face on.
Well, she also trails, as you see, Frankie Perry by 65 points, and she realizes what happened to Frankie in the first event. Now she's up against Zap. And I have to think that the smaller person in this instance, Mike, has the advantage. I mean, if you can avoid that blow, maybe you can just use your quickness and your finesse to stay up a little bit longer.
I'm sure that's what Brenda is counting on. Sort of a female equivalent here of David and Goliath. Zap with a couple of shots, but it is Brenda Hund who emerges victorious, and the crowd loves it.
Oh, they love to see the little one knock her off. Now, Zap talked about being tough and aggressive, but she takes a swing with that stick, manages to just get the swing. Now she tries to bowl her over with the shoulder, doesn't do it, but Brenda gets her balance, loads, and puts the old left cross on Zap. Off she comes, and I guess you just don't want to mess with that little mighty might of power.
Her size can be deceptive. Let's get her reaction.
I'm a fighter. I do it for a living. You shouldn't mess with somebody who knows how to use a weapon.
Well, I guess not, and she managed to pull ahead here, 215 to 180 after 4 events on Frankie Perry. Coming up next is the men's assault. Now, Mike, the men have to go through 4 separate stations to try and hit the target to the left of the Gladiators, and I would think, being big guys, it's got to be more difficult for them than the little ones that scat around behind these shields.
Well, Joe, that's a point well taken, because Craig is certainly a big man, but he'll get his chance to hit the target next to the Gladiator. There are 4 safety spots in this assault game. Each spot is armed with a weapon. But remember, Nitro is armed with that cannon that fires tennis balls at over 100 miles an hour.
Now, this is the part that gets interesting for Craig Williams. He has to time his movements as Nitro fires, then loads. Now he starts moving over to his second position, ducks down behind the wall. He's really going to have to fire this cannon blind. Oh! He does manage to catch the lower left edge of the target. He saw the explosion. He knew that he blew Nitro out of the water. There's a disappointed Gladiator. He really wanted to take some more shots at Craig Williams. You see the ball hit the lower left side of the target, and now comes the explosion that ends the competition. Mike Adamle visits with Craig Williams.
Get the people behind us saying that it was a lucky shot. What about it, Craig?
It was pure skill, pure skill.
Like you told me yesterday, this sure beats the heck out of being a banker, right?
It sure does. It's a lot more fun, too.
Did you have any strategy coming into this thing? I know, you're not used to running in front of tennis balls flying at you in excess of 100 miles an hour.
I just wanted to stay quick and stay low, just keep my eye on the ball.
Well, you were quick, you were agile, and you had the sure shot today. Congratulations.
Right.
Craig Williams.
Well, the crowd certainly appreciating the effort of Craig Williams as he took out Nitro in that competition. Coming up next is John Shumski. Now, John spends a lot of his time bodybuilding. We had a chance to visit with him and ask him about one of the questions about his sport, and that's the use of steroids.
Well, the use of artificial aids in bodybuilding is, in my view, is not the philosophy of the sport itself. Bodybuilding is building the body. on natural terms, and I believe eating good foods and training every day and getting good sleep is the way to go. I don't think that anybody needs steroids. I don't think that's the way to go. People who promoted them or promote them now are not doing the sport any good. And I don't think that's the way the sport should be heading.
Shumski's focus of attention right now, Nitro atop that pedestal. If he hits the target, if he hits the bullseye, it's worth 100 points. Hits the target, 60 points. If he merely survives, it's worth 30.
Little taunting from Nitro. He wants to take a little better shot at him because he's certainly trying.
Boy, you got to be quick. He got nailed there. He did.
Nitro eliminates John Shumski with a shot on the back. You'll see that he manages to get to the tree barricade. The first shot's going to sail a little bit over his right shoulder, but the second one's going to nail. There's the one that goes over his shoulder. Now as he picks up the weapon, gets him right in the side. We look at the standings. Craig Williams begins to pull away with 305 points. After 4 events, John Shumski with only 220. Coming up next, women's Powerball. There are the standings after 4 events. Frankie Perry trailing Brenda Hund. But we asked Frankie Perry, what about her adventurous spirit?
I'm from a small town, and I was always a loner. And there wasn't really many ways to stretch yourself. And once I moved to the city, I wanted to stretch myself, because the more you stretch yourself, the more you prepare yourself for events like this. Skydiving, I mean, I was afraid to death of heights. By doing it, that helped me overcome. By Taekwondo, it gave me more confidence in having strength. Just, it's a whim. If there's something, I want to try everything once. My family has a saying, you know, when you die, you'll never have to say, I wish, because I go for everything and anything. I want to try everything once.
Interesting philosophy by Frankie Perry, although she might change her mind after playing Powerball. Once again, the rules, 45 seconds to score as many goals as they can. A goal being when a ball is deposited inside the cylinder. Each goal worth 15 points. And Brenda Hund, as the graphic indicates, has done very well in her last 2 events and will try to do the same here in Powerball. However, standing in the Contenders' way, our terrific trio of Lace, Sonny, and Zap.
Well, the 3 Gladiators having to form their own type of strategies to defeat the Contenders. Although they haven't competed in the competition, each, the Contenders and the Gladiators, have had an opportunity to practice, possibly work on some type of a philosophy and strategy. There go our 3 Gladiators out to their positions in Powerball.
Right off the bat, Frankie and Brenda run into each other, kind of like driving the wrong way in rush hour traffic. Zap giving Brenda Hund a shot. Frankie looking to score. Now Brenda zips in behind her and scores the first goal. The Gladiators were hurling a shutout.
Brenda Hund seems to be taking advantage of wherever Frankie Perry goes. She follows her up, lets her get occupied by the Gladiators, and then follows up behind her.
Lace with a nice tackle, Zap with an out-of-bounds play. Lace and Frankie Perry still wrapped up.
Well, it looked like Brenda Hund saw Sonny over there, and she said, no, I think they'll go the other way.
And Joe, you can start to see the fatigue set in. Again, 45 seconds of non-stop anaerobic activity, and there's the whistle. Brenda Hund with 3 balls earns 45 points. Perry with 1 goal, just 15 points.
Now this is where I really believe Brenda Hund has developed a strategy. She's watching where Frankie Perry is going. She sees her tied up with the Gladiator, so she's going to work in behind Sonny instead of taking Sonny on one-on-one. Now she'll move back. She sees Frankie Perry go the other way, so she said, well, I'll go back over here where Zap is. A little bit of philosophy goes a long way. There you see the scores. Brenda Hund 260, opening up on Frankie Perry after 5 events. Now there's the men's Cannonball after 2 attempts. John Shumski 1 for 2. Craig Williams 2 for 2 for 60 points.
Again, each contender has 3 attempts to knock the Gladiator off the pedestal. This is the final attempt of John Shumski. A reminder, this is a preliminary round. The 5 winners from the prelims and the 3 best second-place finishers can advance or will advance to the quarterfinals. As Gemini digs in on the pedestal. Gemini takes out a pretty good shot by John Shumski.
Didn't even move. It looks like he just sets his shield out and deflects Shumski off to the side so that he can't absorb the full blow of that weight coming off that 17-foot platform.
Gemini says, yeah. Well, next up, Craig Williams, and no contender has gone 3 for 3 in human cannonball so far. Craig Williams has a chance to change all that. 6'2", 225 pounds. Played for a short while with the New England Patriots after a terrific collegiate football career at Lafayette College.
I guess the screen was the big difference. I mean, John Shumski came off silently, didn't take Gemini out. Craig Williams puts a little bit of noise into it. And as you can see, Gemini misjudges where the feet of Craig Williams are going to be and winds up taking the full shot right on the chest.
Craig, the thing I think that really put you over the top was you screamed a little bit, yeah, on the way down.
That was pretty much an unconscious move. When I jumped up there, I just said to myself, just scream, just scare them, surprise them, do whatever you can. And it pretty much worked.
Craig Williams, with his 100 points, increases his lead 405 to 250 over John Shumski after 5 events. And coming up next, the Eliminator.
We're back at Universal Studios Hollywood, and now let's go back to Joe Theismann.
This is the last event in our first round of competition. It's called the Eliminator. The object of this game is not quite that difficult. All you have to do is get yourself from point A all the way around to the end. Sounds simple, but watch what happens. The first part of this competition, the contenders have to roll this ball up the ramp in front of them. As they push the ball up the ramp, they'll continue to move and move and move up to here, slide the ball over into a holding tank on the side. Then they'll start across this ramp, which looks rather simple, except that there'll be 3 gladiators on the right, 3 gladiators on the left, throwing these medicine balls in front of them, trying to knock them down into the pit. And when they get over to the other side, my co-host, Mike Adamley, is going to tell you about the rest of this one.
Well, Joe, at this point, the Eliminator really starts to get fun. The contenders will have to negotiate these commando lines. As you can see, it is very unsteady and very stable. Now, I've got 60 seconds to finish this Eliminator course, so I need to make up as much time as I can, so I have to go a little bit faster than I did there. Here, the swing for life across the barrier and down. And at this point, the contender has a series of choices to make. First, I can go down the left corridor, or I can go down the right corridor. In my case, I'll go down the left corridor. And then there's another choice, and maybe the most important choice, which lane to take. I could take the left lane or the right lane. It's quite possible if I pick the right lane, I can go scot-free to the finish line. But if I pick the wrong lane, well, there could be a big bad gladiator waiting for me. Let's hope I pick the right one. Yeah! Ooh. Mr. Malibu, I'm glad you weren't over here. It's tough. It's a lot of energy expended. You've got 60 seconds to do it. And the contender that makes it this far will have done a great, great job.
Well, each contender realizing that this is the last event in the competition, and I'm sure as they've scanned over the Eliminator, they feel like it's them against the obstacle course. The only problem is once you break through that wall at the end, there is one more obstacle, that being a gladiator, Mike.
Quite possibly. We should also add that because this is the final event, it's weighted a little bit heavier than the others. There are bonus points to be won.
I would think with Brenda Hund realizing her standings, having a 65-point lead, she might approach this event with a little more caution than Frankie Perry has to, Mike.
But not too much caution, because she could let it slip away. She has to be careful. Brenda Hund dwarfed by that giant ball she has to push up the ramp.
They're neck and neck going up now. The women are being very careful placing those balls in the cylinder. Brenda hanging on to the ball. There's going to be some points taken away there. Now she's shorter, so it's very difficult for her to reach that rope bridge. slipping a little bit. Frankie Perry moving across very, very systematically.
Brenda Hund, however, making up some ground. Now Frankie, the first to reach the swing for life, doesn't get enough momentum, and her swing leaves her stuck atop that one barrier.
Both contenders entering the maze. Now Brenda Hund runs right into Lace. Frankie Perry breaks through.
Frankie Perry crosses the finish line first, but she needs to win by more than 13 seconds. You can see that she did not. Brenda Hund has won the Eliminator. And watch the technique by Lace here. I call this the Gladiator hip check. Brenda is doing her darndest to get by Lace. A great struggle here, and finally, there she goes down. Brenda is able to push and power her way across the finish line in the nick of time to win.
Well, Frankie Perry seemed to be having things her way until she got to this swing over the wall and just slides down the rope, doesn't quite make it over the wall.
And for all intents and purposes, that was the difference. Now, Brenda Hund was penalized for grabbing a hold of the medicine ball here on the balance beam, but it did not cost her too dearly.
You're going to move on to the next round. How do you feel?
I'm excited. I can't wait.
Did you enjoy the competition so far?
Yeah, it's really exciting because it's so dangerous. You get up and you're all relaxed and you get up again. I think I've lost about 15 pounds.
So Brenda Hund advances to the quarterfinals, but for the men, it appears to be a fait accompli. Craig Williams would need to make some serious mistakes here in the Eliminator to lose to John Shumski.
Well, all does not seem lost, though, for John Shumski. Remember, the 5 winners from the preliminaries will advance, and also the 3 best second-place finishers will advance to the quarterfinals. So as John Shumski approaches the Eliminator, he can't just feel like he's losing out to Craig Williams. He's got to do the best he can and accumulate the most points that he can.
That 31 seconds represents the mountain that Shumski needs to climb to beat Craig here. Gladiators, of course, can enjoy this event more or less. They really don't come too much into contact until that final moment through the maze.
Up until the end, they can enjoy it, but those men that are waiting at the end of the maze for the contenders to come through may have a very rude awakening.
Both men working their way up the ramp. It appears to be dead even. Shumski getting tangled up in the medicine ball. He also held one. That'll cost him some penalty points. He reaches the commando lines first, but is struggling there. So is Craig Williams. I think their size having a lot to do with their misadventures. Shumski, the first over the barrier. Craig goes flying well past the pads.
And at the end of the maze, we've got 2 very happy gladiators, neither one having to take on the contenders.
Well, John Shumski needed to win by a big margin. He did not, so Craig Williams advances to the quarterfinals. Both men reached the platform at about the same time, and this is what cost John Shumski a little bit when he held on to that medicine ball. He was penalized. Craig Williams, the winner. Now with Joe.
Well, Craig, you managed to eliminate the Eliminator as well as the contender. You're moving on to the next round. How do you feel?
I feel pretty good. I tell you, when I was going through this, I only wanted to concentrate on 2 things. Making it across the plank and not having to hit anybody when I came over here.
Everything else, the rope didn't seem to bother you. Swinging across the platform didn't bother you at all.
No.
It's just that rail with the Gladiators standing there. Actually, the only 2 places where the Gladiators were seemed to create a problem for you.
How about that? How about that?
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Well, good luck in the next round.
All right, thanks a lot.
So Craig Williams, the big man from Massachusetts, advances to the quarterfinals, as does Brenda Hund, a winner over Frankie Perry.
There's a look at our 2 winners, and if the points are high enough, John Shumski and Frankie Perry might also qualify for the quarterfinals. Here are the contenders who will compete against the American Gladiators next week. For Mike Adamle, I'm Joe Theismann saying goodbye